What's up, everybody? It's Gia MaCool.
How you doing? It's Glenn Lawrence, and we are back.
Yes, today we're going to be discussing something that I think is a little controversial, and I want you guys to hang on and listen to this one. We are going to be exposing common dating versus marriage advice circulating online. There is an overwhelming amount of prescriptions out there, but what's not clear to the viewers is the long-term impact of that advice.
Yeah, and since our show is centered around giving people real world solutions, today's challenge, we're going to be talking about and highlighting how much of the advice online is designed for short-term mating strategies as it is to long-term mating strategies, and what's the difference between the two. We'll break down what works and what doesn't work, and separate the advice from the crap.
Yes. And there is nothing wrong with wanting to stay single and not get married. But when we tell men how to optimize their dating strategies without that transparency on how that advice plays out in the long game, we're setting them up for failure.
And today, we want to expose the short-term sexual strategy solutions versus the solutions for those that want to optimize for long-term mating strategies. And who better to talk about this with than somebody in the profession of study? How about a
Uh,
doctor, if we could? How about
Yes.
a Dr.
Orion
Orion
Taraban.
Taraban?
Yes. Yeah, let's do this.
So you ready?
Now let's go.
Here we go.
Seven fake bodies, sophisticated lighting of the modern age. No, save not the church, not banging their flipping the script.
Dr. Orion Taraban, a renowned expert in clinical psychology specializing in men's mental health, relationships, and personal growth. He is best known publicly as the host of Psych Hacks, a popular YouTube channel and podcast with millions of views, offering insight on male and female nature to best utilize dating in today's society. He's also the author of a book, The Value of Others, Understanding the Economic Model of Relationships to Get and Keep More of What You Want in the Sexual Marketplace, which applies an economic lens in relationship dynamics. Welcome, Dr. Taraban.
Hey,
Welcome, Dr. Taraban. It's a
happy
pleasure
to be
having
Hey,
you here
here. What an
today.
intro. Very cool editing there. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you,
thank
Gia. I'm
you.
happy to be here.
Yes.
Well,
So,
thank you
and
for joining us.
we are going to be diving straight into these questions because I know your time is limited and we appreciate you being here. So there is, online, right? You hear things, you hear these sound bites, right? And you'll hear people always go, the data shows, right? You get that a lot. Like to prove things like, for instance, 80% of divorces are an issue by women. Or you'll hear things like 80% of women sleep with 20% of Chad, right? I know that's something we've all heard. What mistakes do you think people usually make when they say these kind of things? Like, are they factual or are we leaving out a lot?
Well, they do seem to be factual on the population level. Like these are statistics that can be corroborated using publicly available data, especially about divorce statistics
Mhm.
and women's behavior on dating apps. When it comes to actually sleeping with women, that generally requires self report surveys, which are less reliable, but we can use women swiping and matching and texting behavior on apps as a proxy for who they are attracted to and who they're willing to engage with. The issue is that that works on the population level, and no one dates a statistic. The person that you actually go out with is going to be an individual. That individual might conform to statistical expectations, or that individual might not. But ultimately, these statistics should provide men with some measure of caution when entering into marriage, the sexual marketplace. Unfortunately, some of them use it to rationalize their own inertia or avoidance in the same. They
Okay.
weren't going out dating anyway, or they had a few bad experiences, and they can now use these statistics to rationalize not trying again in the future, or their own hopelessness about finding a satisfying and loving relationship.
So it's like their ways
Mm.
to disqualify the woman or something before even getting rejected in a
It's a
way.
cope, it's the same thing
Yeah.
with guys do it all the time
Mhm.
at bars when they see the really hot woman and they chicken out about approaching her and they're like, "Ah, she's probably a bitch anyway." It's like, "Really?" You don't necessarily know that, right? So,
Yeah.
I think it does often rationalize inertia and hopelessness.
That
You
makes
know,
sense. It's just a reminder that we can't jump to conclusions based on like patterns without proving it in a direct cause and effect,
That
basically.
said, it's really important for men to understand some of these statistics. They don't go into the dating market with rose-colored glasses thinking they're going to encounter their
Correct.
grandparents' generation. And like times have changed, and times have changed significantly over the last 5 years. Like
Very much.
10 years ago,
Times have changed like that much though, because I mean, even like King Solomon was writing about when he was searching for look, and we could not find one man among 1,000 to be righteous, but he could not find one woman to be righteous. I mean, it looks like the problem was there too, you know.
and he also had what 300 wives and 500 concubines.
I
So,
think it was 700 wives, 300 concubines,
oh, he
but
had more wives and concubines. Okay, he was a very generous man. So in some cases, the more things change, the more things stay the same. What we're dealing with, and this isn't the first time this has happened. It's happened at other points in human history. Like Japan had it in the 19th century. They called it the floating world, where there was a deterioration in traditional values and a resurgence in sexual liberality. So it happens from culture to culture, from time to time, and we're in a destabilized Wild West kind of a situation. And when sexual marketplaces and traditions fall apart, what we tend to see is a trend towards polygamy. In the
Mhm.
unregulated sexual marketplace, when women are kind of allowed, left to
Yeah,
their own devices, they're not being partnered off or sold off by their fathers and grandfathers, etc. When they make their own choices, they hold out for those top percentile men,
yeah.
or generally they're happy being single, especially if they can make and keep their own assets and money. So no one is forcing or telling women to do this. In fact, there's a lot of voices counseling them to the opposite. But what we
right.
see in a dysregulated sexual marketplace is that more and more women will only settle for a smaller and smaller percentage of men, which of course increases those men's sexual opportunity, which reduces the likelihood they're going to commit to any one of those women. And it decreases the likelihood that those women will ever end up with any of those guys because their intersexual
Yeah,
competition, the other women who are gunning for the same dude, is very fierce.
Yeah.
makes
Now, when
sense.
we see like two things that are linked, like, you know, people will say like body count and divorced, um, you know, or like, you know, the correlation, high body count, more divorce. And they'll say like things like, well, women under three partners show a 60% chance of being in a successful marriage, whatever that is, or however they're using to measure successful. And then like women with three or more, their odds drop down to 30%. Is correlation is not causation in these things, right? Or is it causation and correlation the same?
No, correlation is not causation, and sometimes even the values being correlated are proxies for something else. Like for example, I
Mm,
studied this in grad school when I studied statistics and assessment. For example, you can see through pure the IQ data that there are clear discrepancies with respect to race and
mm,
IQ outcomes. And so that causes a lot of people to say, "Oh my God, look at this! Some races are inherently more intelligent than others." However, if you control for socioeconomic status, pretty much all of those race-based discrepancies disappear. And
mm,
often race in that field is being used as a proxy for socioeconomic status. Do you understand? So
mm.
when it comes to this, we're talking about body count and divorce rates, but body count is just a number. And I think it's being used as a proxy for other things. And I
Mhm.
do think that it's a good idea for men to move beyond a monomaniacal focus on the number, because what we're getting at is the body count is a proxy for like purity and innocence and the
Mhm.
ability
Mhm.
to bond. Now,
And it doesn't like a body count does not determine whether a woman would be good to you or treat you right as a good spouse or a wife would, right? It just means that they didn't have as much sex. Like it doesn't necessarily correlate they're gonna be a good spouse.
yes, and I've dated some women with very low body counts, and they were insufferable because they were like dating a little princess and they expected the world and they didn't really understand how to provide value to a man, um, et cetera, et cetera. So the proxy for body count is generally purity, innocence, and the ability to pair bond. But they're not the same thing. So, for example, there are some cultures in the world, like the Republic of Georgia, certain Central Asian countries, where actually a woman's virginity, like her technical virginity, hymen intact, is very important for her
Mhm.
marriage prospects. But just because a
Mhm.
woman has an intact hymen doesn't necessarily mean that she hasn't done all kinds of other sexual acts with all kinds of other men. Like that's
Exactly.
been whole for decades, right? So
Exactly.
I wouldn't necessarily consider a woman with an intact hymen who's had 50 oral sexual partners pure and innocent and able to pair bond. And I think the most important thing for pair bonding is not about you being her first sexual experience. It's, in my opinion, more important to be the first man that she
Best.
loves and the
I'll
The
best.
say the
best, the best,
best. Would
correct.
be the best.
Instead of
Yeah.
what makes body count difficult, if she's been with 50 guys ahead of me,
Mhm.
what's the
Mhm.
likelihood that I'm going to be better than the best of those 50?
Correct. That's what it comes down to. Mhm.
See, I always like so like here's a theory, and this is a me and my mentor Thor would go back and forth on because we both think this is potentially possible. And I don't know, maybe you could help me out here. Um, we think that well, one body count is a number you shouldn't be focused on. You should be focused on how she treats you. So that's a one objective thing that you could actually measure and actually see, right? But also, if you're her best sexual, experience, those body counts prior to probably don't matter. Like the whole alpha widow effect. Like if she's been alpha widow by somebody else, and you out alpha the alpha, so now you are the standard. Those previous numbers will get washed away.
Yeah, think about it this way. If the girl that you're dating only had one body before you, only had one boyfriend, but that boyfriend was a Division 1 athlete who went on to play in the pros. He's made millions of dollars. He's 6'4". He's jacked and athletic. Men everywhere love him. Women everywhere are trying to get with him. And he turned her down. I don't think that you're going to be psyched that she only has one body. So
Yeah,
not all bodies are created equal in what we're getting at
It's
here.
true.
yeah,
It's true. And this kinda goes into, like, my next question because I don't know if you wanna pull up the graph, Glenn, but there
yeah.
was a graph that I seen recently, and basically, the graph showed that people claim that they can have secure attachment while also having the highest number of sexual partners. But it doesn't connect to other studies, like the other studies that I've looked at, right? So we are seeing people who say that they can have casual sex, but still find themselves getting emotionally attached. And most data is showing that the more sexual partners they have, the more it affects the bonding each time. So why doesn't it calling like when they say, oh, it's just casual, right? That doesn't stop the emotional attachment. And at what point do the receptors in their brain get fried for future bonding?
Okay, so I've never leave the graph up because I've never seen this before. That's a huge sample size. So this
Mm-hmm.
is if
Yeah.
there are significant differences between the styles, which it seems like there are, that would be a statistically significant finding. Do you know anything about like is the attachment style self-reported, and then it's being correlated to body count? Is that what we're
So,
getting at here?
that yeah, this
Let
is
me
a
pull.
brand new
I'm
site.
gonna pull it up
Yeah,
right now, so I'll look it up while you guys are talking.
mhm.
And
I just
so
thought it was kind
just
of funny because you
sorry to interrupt you. So what I'm seeing here is basically that securely attached people actually have the highest body count, whereas anxiously insecure people have the lowest. That's your takeaway from this data as well?
well, that's what I'm seeing here, but it doesn't like, it's not connecting to other studies, right? So that's why I'm like, "Okay, where is the disconnect? Are people self-reporting that they can have as many bodies and it not affect their bonding while actual data showing contrary to that, right? So people could be saying this, but it's not really in the long run, they're still getting emotionally attached with every partner that they
Okay.
call casual.
I think so. I think I understand your question. So, yes, there is a lot of bias in self report surveys, but in
Mhm.
general, the bias is towards social desirability. And I think everybody knows that it's not socially desirable, at least for women, to have high body counts. So I don't think that these folks are inflating their numbers per se, or if the men are inflating,
Mhm.
the women are probably deflating, which is
Exactly.
why we get this very peculiar finding that men on average have more sexual partners than women on average. Because it's like, well, who are they
Mhm.
having sex with, right? Isn't it kind of a one-to-one
Right.
thing? Um, it can be a statistical anomaly in the sense that the top 0.1% of men are just having an insane amount of sex, which is true, and they might be taking a median as opposed to pure mean, um,
Okay.
et cetera. We don't need to get into the statistical weeds here. So your question is
Yeah.
about bonding, and I think that's true in the sense that I don't think it's possible unless you're a straight up psychopath or sociopath or whatever you want to call it, and those are rare despite the misuse of that term these days. Unless you're straight up sociopath, you can't have sex with the same person over and over again and not develop feelings for them. Like it's just not possible.
Correct.
Like you can keep a rein on your emotions and do things to kind of slow down that process, which might actually, in many cases, be a good idea. You don't want to have good
Mhm.
sex with some stranger once and then see the heavens part and say, I found my wife or my forever person, like that's getting way ahead of yourself. So there is a time and a place to keep a rein on your emotions, but
Mhm.
you can't do it over and over again and not become emotionally attached to some degree. And that's because
Correct.
of the most likely the oxytocin neurotransmitter that gets released in men and women during different
Mhm.
sexual acts. Sometimes it's actual nipple stimulation or postcoital cuddling in women, or it's actually the orgasm in men. You're going to be flooded. And just like in the duckling who gets imprinted on the football, when you get flooded with those chemicals, you're going to begin psychologically to form a bond to whoever you're with at the time. They've even
Correct.
done studies with like putting oxytocin in a little sniffer, like so that you
Mm.
can insufflate it. And it leads to all kinds of pro social behavior and greater emotional vulnerability and
Wow.
connection, even between strangers.
Because
So,
I know that, like,
according to
you
the
hear.
website, all the data is based off self-reporting, and they're actually extracting it from multiple different, like, sites and, like TikTok, X, and these are all people doing polls, and they,
So
um,
self-reporting,
com
okay.
compiled all these different polls over the course of, like, it says, like, 2 years for some of these studies, and this is what the findings that they have come up
Well,
with.
here,
It's
another way to kind of make sense of this, because again, that's a huge sample size, nearly a million people. But it is kind of potentially specious where they're getting the data from. But there's still far more secure people than otherwise. Um, Secure people tend to mate and date other secure people. So there's
Mhm.
more secure people to have sex with. So if you're secure, it might make sense that you're having more sex than, say, an anxious, insecure person who might find it difficult to go out there or to trust other people or even go on dates. Anxious folks generally don't mate and date with other anxious. They generally mate and date with other avoidance.
Mhm.
But most secure people find it very difficult to be in a relationship with either avoidance or anxious. And disorganized, forget about it. They're totally like a wild card. So even though they look the same, there's like 60% of people are in the secure category right there.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the categories aren't really, it's a huge sample size, but each individual attachment
Correct.
category is much, much smaller. So that could also
Yeah.
be skewing the numbers.
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up just because I think that the disconnect is really that. There's a lot of people self-reporting things, but they're coping as well, and they're not necessarily honest in these surveys. So I think that that's where you'll get you hear things online, right? Don't catch feelings, catch flights, or what play with fire, get burned, or the heart wants what the heart wants, right? You hear all these little sayings, and it kind of leads you to believe that people are going to do things and say it's casual, but in the long run, they're getting emotionally attached.
Well, yes, over time. Like if you keep
Mhm.
sleeping
Mhm.
with other new partners, you probably won't get attached to any one of them. But
Mhm.
yeah, you can't keep things casual and sleep with the same person month after month, year after year, and not
And
develop
not have a
feelings
bond.
for them. I mean, and
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
would you want that? Like if you're seeing somebody
exactly.
for that much time and that frequently, why wouldn't you want to start to care about them? It doesn't
You should
necessarily mean you
probably
have
be
to get
concerned
married and
when you
share your
don't,
property.
right?
So then that's why my next question was, does the receptors in the brain over time fry their bonding? Like, the more they do this and the more people they go through over time, naturally, if they keep on suppressing and saying it's just casual, isn't that going to affect them long term?
I mean, that's sort of the argument, and you can see that with correlations between body count and divorce that Glenn was mentioning
Mhm.
earlier. Look, attachment is peaking in the popular consciousness. It's
Mm.
probably peaked already, and we're on the decline. And it's really attachment science has a very robust empirical base, but it's been overgeneralized in the popular imagination. Attachment
Mm.
is not the only thing that's important in relationships. In fact,
Mm.
you can make the argument that
Mhm.
detachment is just as important as attachment. Like, for
Yeah.
Mm.
example, from a Stoic perspective, nothing that you have is yours. Everything that you have, whether it's your wife, your children, your property, your health, everything will be taken from you.
Mhm. At
And
the
to
end of
be
your
able,
life.
on the one hand, have that kind of ease and generosity of spirit to be able to surrender things when it's appropriate to do so, while still showing up and being committed to your life and your responsibilities, that could be a masculine ideal. It's not to
Mhm.
become like emotionally attached to things
Right,
that
right.
it will certainly, I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, what causes suffering?
Mm.
Fucking attachment, in one word. So it's like attachment is not the solution to all of the relationship problems.
That's why, like,
How does that
the best movie quote was from Heat, where he says, "Don't you ever get yourself into anything you can't walk out in 30 seconds or less when the heat is around the corner."
And that's definitely a man's movie. I've never heard a woman say my
so
favorite movie is Heat.
so if you think that masculinity is really also understanding the balance between detachment and attachment, what do you think that how do you think that affects women now? Is that change when it comes to women? Are they more, if they get used to detachment, right? Does that affect them more than men? Is there a difference there?
Yeah, because I think women ultimately are more loyal to their feelings. So if their
Mm,
feelings change, it's hard to keep them around. I think the
mm,
detachment argument works more for men because men have a greater conceptualization of duty and honor. Those are masculine
Mhm.
concepts. You don't
mm.
hear women talking about that with other women. And
Okay.
men will do the right thing even when they don't feel like it. Women will do that
That's
too,
why,
but not as long.
and it's like it's normally women are told, "Do what's right by you, girl." Men are told,
That's yeah, I mean,
do the right thing."
exactly. And that's causing a lot of men to rage quit current
Mhm.
relationships.
Mhm.
That is
Right.
completely asymmetrical. You can't expect me to be the old school provider protector while you get to run roughshod over this relationship and act single the entire time. So that
Mhm.
doesn't work. So it could be that it's ideal for the woman to be attached and the man to be committed, but
Yeah.
not necessarily
Mhm.
emotionally attached in the same way
It
that a
al it
woman.
it almost reminds me a little bit of your adore and adoree,
Sure.
that conversation that you've had. It's reminding me, like, that's why there's a difference between the 2, right?
Yeah, men and women are different.
Mhm.
Can you
Mhm.
believe that that's sort of like a cancelable idea in today's day and age? Men and women are different. They need and
And it's
want
like,
different
Yeah.
things.
and you should want to have something that's different, right? Like, you wouldn't want the same thing as you, because then that would make you gay if you're not gay. Like, like
Well, it's interesting because the same people who generally shout down that idea that men and women are different are usually great
Mhm.
proponents of diversity. But for diversity to actually be diverse, you need difference.
different.
Like there's no
Mhm.
if men and women are the same, why are we still counting statistics about the number of men in business versus the number of women? We don't do that for the number of right-handed people versus left-handed people. We don't do that with arbitrarily defined categories. We do that from
Mm.
truly diverse and different categories, or else what's the point, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways. But of course, we know that a lot of this is selective because it's in the service of, let's say, a certain agenda.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Exactly.
like that. 'Cause I was gonna have a question about that, but you mentioned before, that short-term relationships, they could be very passionate. They could be fiery, it could be all the good stuff. You get all the limerence in the relationship you want, but then they burn out real quick. And you mentioned that if a relationship doesn't have a direction, like this is not just
Mm.
like, we're not just having fun, we're not just like playing around. No, we're going somewhere with this. The relationship's gonna flounder and generally gets, even if it's pleasurable overall. What do you mean by that? Like, so do you think that going into relationships with like marriage minded, or like long term like focus is like the missing piece when it comes to these like a short term relationships?
No, I don't. I think that this is a misunderstanding as well, because sometimes there is a theme online about intentional dating, which is
Hmm.
generally something that women come to in their 30s after doing other things in their 20s. And they think, I
Mhm.
want to get a man, I want to start a family, I want to settle down, and it hasn't worked in the past. So I'm going to date intentionally, not just for having fun. I'm going to date intentionally to get married. And so they show up and it's a fucking job interview. And it's like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm on this timeline, which has nothing to do with me. Like the fact
Because I'm
that
not
you
on a
spent your 20s
timeline.
the way that you spent your, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just the dude who sat down at the table 5 minutes ago. But it's like, I have this time and, are we compatible? What's your attachment style? What do you make? What do you do? It's like, I want this. And the women who date intentionally in this way are offering a really shitty deal to the man that they're sitting across the
Mhm.
table from.
Hmm.
They're like, this is what I want. You
Hmm.
can't sell anything by pitching what you want. You only get to sell if you can demonstrate to the consumer, to the customer, that they get what they want or what they need. But the women who date this way, it's like, I'm tired of messing around. I don't want to waste any time. Are you in or are you out? Which is basically like a one sided business proposal. And a lot of guys are
Mhm.
like, hey, not my circus, not my monkeys, and they back out. So in my opinion, there isn't two pathways in today's day and age, especially where sex precedes commitment,
Mhm.
even for folks who end up getting married. There's not the short-term path and the long-term path. It's one path, and it's long-term because it lasts.
Mhm.
It's just because it doesn't end. The things that kind of get you to like somebody and to want to organically spend more time with them and to integrate them into your life and to go on trips and introduce them to your friends is because you like them. And
Mhm.
that should be the goal of everybody who wants a long-term relationship and to get married. It's like get the other person to like you, which means don't be difficult, don't be demanding, have fun, have a lot of
Mhm.
sex. Like this is what causes people to bond together. It's not I have a business proposal for you.
I've often said with businesses, especially if you're starting a business, a lot of brands, and this is not, this is, I'll show you where this is the analogy, but a lot of brands will do, hey, this is what I have, this is what I've done, right? They always come out and do these pitches. And I'm always like, no, don't talk about you. It's the person watching you that needs to feel like the hero. It's that person that you should be appealing to. And I think this is an analogy for women as well in the dating sphere. Like you shouldn't be talking about what you do and all the things you've done. It should be about making that person feel like the hero. How do you do that?
Sure, you have to see it
And
from
I
your
think there's a
customer's
disconnect.
perspective. The cat decides what
Exactly.
milk is good. The
hmm
cat decides what
Mhm.
milk is
Exactly.
good.
So when you say that, there has to be a direction, can you explain what you meant by that?
Oh, so if we're actually talking about a long-term relationship, uh,
Mhm.
you can think about marriage or long-term partnership like an LLC. It's basically like we are
Mhm.
coming together to accomplish a mission that neither one of us can accomplish on our own.
We're
I
joining forces.
recognized that I need you and I need your skill set and
Mm,
your expertise and your labor and your goodwill to accomplish this goal that we both want. Because if I could do it without you, I would. Because you're another person, you're expensive. I'm going to have to compromise, I'm going to have to sacrifice, I'm going to have to
right.
take your concerns into consideration, and that I'd rather not do that. So I'm only going to enter into this kind of partnership just like with a company because I recognize that I suck at marketing or I don't know how to code or I need somebody to do customer
Mm,
service. And so now you're providing a valuable complementary skill so that we can both work together towards a superordinate goal. That's the only real reason to have a long term relationship, especially to get the law involved. Just be two adults who enjoy spending time with each other. If you just want to, go on trips and explore the world, which is also a mission on some level. But in general,
okay.
the main mission for men and women in long term relationships is to have children and start a family. And I'm not a
Okay.
big fan of marriage, but I do think that's probably not probably, it's definitely the best reason to get married is to start a family.
Okay. Okay. So then I know in the past shows that I've done, I've always told people that marrying, I mean, well, even if you want marriage, let's just say that's your goal, okay? Even if you want a marriage, I don't even recommend jumping straight to that. I think you should at least date them 6 months, maybe even 2 years, like live with that person, get to know how they are under struggle, under hard times, right? Because you jumping right into marriage without understanding how they handle struggle and hard times is not common sense, in my opinion. And I know I've heard in some of your shows that you have always, or you at least mentioned the same kind of philosophy behind that. So, can you give me a little bit, or at least the viewers, help them understand that maybe that's what happens when guys do the whole, well, she bait and switched me, right? You'll hear that, oh, she bait and switched me, right?
About
At
what?
least
Like they
I've heard
actually
men.
catfished him?
Well, they no, they marry these women, right?
Oh.
Like, I've had men tell me, we got married and she completely changed on me," okay?
Mhm.
Or, "She
Well,
bait and switched me."
on
And I
some
say to
level,
them, "Well, wait a second. Did you have unrealistic expectations from the get-go?" Because I think people have a tendency to have these ideals, and then when they get married, those ideals don't come out, and then they go, "Well, you bait and switched me." Well, maybe it was that you had ideals or expectations that weren't really there to begin with.
okay. So, a couple of things about this. So, first of all, yes, I absolutely suggest that people date for at least 12 months, not six, 12 months before they make any long term commitments to each other. And this is because in the first several months, you have the honeymoon period. Limerence is high, sex is hot and passionate and frequent. And in general, you're there because you like me and you want me to like you. And I'm there because I like you and I want you to like me. So there's a lot of socially desirable presentation. It doesn't necessarily mean
Correct.
that people are lying, but they're definitely putting their best foot forward, right?
Correct.
So I talk
There's
about,
covert contracts is what I call it.
oh, there's
Covert.
a
They
lot of
they
that. I
they
mean,
they
that's
have it.
Robert Glover's term from Nowhere Mr. Nice Guy. And there's a lot of that on both sides that more assertive and confident people can learn to dispense with, right? Um, but I talk about in my book how every relationship passes through at least three crises. And the first one is the crisis of disillusionment, which is basically that you've been dating for 6, 8, 10 months. Everything seems to be going well. But then either some big thing happens or there's just some accumulation of small inconsistencies. And it's almost like the the idea of this person, the fantasy of this person shatters, and you're seeing the person for how he or she really is. They
Mhm.
fart, they lie, they're selfish, they're lazy. And this is when the
It's not her
same
real eyelashes.
this is where the same quality just suddenly becomes negative. In the beginning, it was
Correct.
so awesome, and she was bragging to her friends about how ambitious and hardworking he was. Now, after the crisis resolution, he only cares about money. He never takes me out anymore. It's like it's the same behavior. He hasn't changed. You've changed.
Correct.
And so it's
Mhm.
important to pass through the crisis disillusionment before you make a permanent or long term commitment to somebody. Because this is actually when the relationship starts. Because before then, you were engaging with your projected fantasy. Now you're actually seeing the real person. And so now you
Yeah, I say
actually have,
that's like they send their best representative. It's like this is my public, spokesperson, like this version of me, and then after a while, then you get the real version of them, right?
it's like a job interview. Everyone shows up and like, yeah, I really want to participate and help the company meet its mission. And then 3 years into the relationship, like, fuck this place, man. They don't appreciate me here. Like people don't appreciate the things that they have. The game does not run on gratitude, right?
You're
Um,
right.
so once you actually see the person, warts and all, you have the opportunity now to make a reality based assessment. Does this person
Mm.
actually have the traits and attributes and skills and willingness to take me where we both want to go or not? And if they don't, it might be a good idea to jump ship because you're probably not that committed at that point.
Okay.
But you
Okay,
can't.
so there's this, we know that there's data showing that people who go into relationships and wait to commit, cohabitate, okay, have a tendency to have less success. They usually break up sooner than people who marry. So where again, our data what the data is out there and what is actually good recommendations or what we know works also as well, there's a disconnect. Why is this happening?
I don't know. I haven't read that data, so it could be that the people getting married were religious or in the military, and then they get married on the second date.
Mm.
Uh, Jordan
Do
Peterson
that.
talked
Don't
about
don't
this a
make
lot
fun of me
back in
like
the
that.
day about how couples who cohabitate without getting married have a much higher separation rate than couples
Yeah.
who
Correct.
wait to cohabitate after they get married.
Mhm.
But I don't know if that necessarily completely squares with what you were saying, Gia, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's like if we say that if you cohabitate, there's more chance to break up than if
Well,
you
that's what the
marry.
data points to is what we're saying is like because cohabitation
Mhm.
before marriage, right, tends to seem like I have it right here where it's like the national data shows that many couples who live together break up within the first 5 years, and then about half of them actually they get married within 3 years. So like the idea of like cohabitating before marriage, is that an issue? Because that's what it seems like people are living together before they get married. Or is it like the
Well,
sex aspect of it is what ruins it? I don't know.
there's another thing I want to
Mhm.
say to before we move on to something else to talk to Gia's point about the bait and switch, because
Mhm.
I said one side of it, which is you do want to go through the crisis disillusionment and watch the projected fantasy crumble. But the other side of it is that when you promote your the woman in your life to your wife, you lose your girlfriend. When you promote the
Mm.
Mm,
man in your life from a boyfriend to a husband, you lose your boyfriend. So men marry their girlfriend hoping that she's going to stay
they stay their
his
girlfriend.
girlfriend. If she However, that's not the case, and it's inappropriate for her to stay his girlfriend. It's like if I were the employer and I see you and you're working really hard as an employee and I say, I'm going to promote you to a manager, to a director, which is basically what the promotion to spouse is, and you still act like an employee, that is a liability for the company.
Mhm.
Once I promote that employee, I lose that employee. I gain a manager or a director, but I can't expect that person to act like an employee in the director role and vice versa.
So are
So
you
in
saying
that
that girlfriends are
analogy,
better than wives? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
that's
All
no,
right, Tara.
that is what he's saying, and that's another soundbite online,
Hey,
right?
I
Girlfriends are better than
mean,
wives.
I
But
didn't say
let's
that, but
be
I did
honest
say
here.
that I think men like girlfriends in general more than they like wives.
I
And I
Right,
wouldn't
think
but here's
argue.
women
the
in
thing.
general like husbands more than they like boyfriends.
If we promote an employee to a VIP manager, okay, that is a given that your responsibilities and obligations within that job are going to be tenfold, okay? So, why aren't women understanding that a girlfriend to a wife requires them to do everything that a girlfriend did plus 10, right? Where is that disconnect happening? Is it the guidance? Is there's not enough community that's helping women understand how they graduate and become better in their role? Where are we lacking?
Well, there is a sense that maybe motherhood or parenthood and marriage is kind of mimetic in the sense that we're imitating what we see, monkey do.
Mhm.
And 2 generations ago, all women saw were other women getting married and becoming mothers. Now that's increasingly uncommon, right? You go to any
Mhm.
kind of senior yearbook in the 1950s, and half the women are proudly saying that their goal in life is to become a housewife and a mother.
Mhm.
Now that in major urban centers in the West, that's seen as a betrayal of the feminist cause,
Correct.
and it's not something that you should ever do. Never make yourself
Mhm.
dependent on a man. Make your own money.
Correct.
Make your own decisions. And if it happens, it happens. So it could be that people just don't know what to do. They don't
Mhm.
know what parenthood
Well,
looks like.
I think it comes down to incentive. So I think women who choose to go that route are being punished by society through peer pressure, socially, and so many different levels. Appearance. I did this whole video on it, but I think they're being punished for that behavior and they're being incentivized and rewarded to go the career route, to go the glam and the travel and the everything, minus being a mother and a wife.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. Wouldn't argue with that. I don't know what the shadowy agenda here is because I don't think that the women are getting together and deciding this. I
I
think
don't
they're
think they have to, though. I don't think women see, men kinda make this mistake. They think that if a man or men by the masses don't like a certain behavior from a woman, that means naturally she is going to follow. That's not how women operate in today's world. They operate by competing with other women.
sure. I don't
So the
think
women
that's
that they
anything new.
So the women that they prop up and they idolize in media becomes the ideals of what the next generation should be or follow. And I think that this is done through media peer pressure. So that's my theory
Well, it
on
could
that.
be like psyoping, right? Like just like you're
There's a huge psyops. That's exactly what I think it is. And then we incentivize women in the short term, so they don't necessarily they're not looking long game. They're looking short term. Hey, what am I getting now? Oh, I get likes. Oh, I get followers. Oh, I get trips across
well,
the world.
I
Oh, I
mean,
get money. You know?
is it the behavior? Like if the behavior is bad and they're being rewarded and they're seeing, oh, if I do bad behavior, I get rewarded.
And,
That would,
and encouraged.
I
Called
mean, that
There's a
empowerment.
there's a few things there. The incentives are still in place. In general, in the sexual marketplace, men and women are exchanging resources for sexual opportunity, generally.
yeah.
hmm
And it's long been the desire of most women to marry a millionaire. Their
Mhm.
desire for $1 million from men has not changed. What has changed in the last 5 to 10 years is it might be easier for the average woman to get $1 from a million men than $1 million
Correct.
from one. So
Yeah.
they still
Yeah.
want $1 million from men. That hasn't changed. They just are going about it in the most efficient and safest and um, immediately available means at their disposal.
Correct. It's what's available.
Okay.
Access.
Um, however, with all of the feminism and sexual liberation, I don't. I think women paradoxically have more or less ended up in the same place, in the
Mhm.
sense that it might be true that a woman doesn't need a man, like a specific man, for a sexual romantic relationship for her life to be complete or to take care of herself or have good things in life. But that it's wrong to say that she doesn't need a man. Like the modern woman needs her employer about as much as her grandmother needed her husband. And her
Yeah.
employer is probably a man. And so now she's not dependent on one man, but now she's dependent on several men. She's dependent on her employer's HR policies and PTO. She's dependent
And
on
on the police force for her
police. Well,
protection.
certainly women need men around. They need men
Yeah.
around because men actually build and maintain civilization. Everything would
Correct,
fall apart
correct,
without men. Like there's no argument
correct.
against that. So they don't need
Mhm.
a man, but they need men around to build their smartphones and to deliver their packages and et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. And they don't realize that. I think they don't realize how much men compartmentalize. So what ends up happening is somebody could be a good mate choice, right? But because she did or made choices based off of what other women have told her is the right way to move, now that guy who was interested in her moves her from bucket A, which would be marriage material or relationship material, and now puts her in bucket B, which is pump and dump.
Sure. I mean, what you're basically saying
So
is it's like I was just following orders, which didn't work at
mhm,
Nuremberg, and it's not going to work for women today. It's like, yeah,
mhm.
they were just doing what they were told, but that's not good enough, and that's no skin off my
So,
back.
yeah,
I mean,
and then
there's
the
a
long
saying that
game
like we make like today's women, like men have made the women that we have today. Like we've created them this way. Say and vice versa with the men. Like the men that we have today, women have created. You have pussified the men, men have sexually liberated the women, and now you're mad that you're saying all these women are promiscuous and all these men are not man enough. Well, it's really your guys' fault. You guys created each other. That's what you wanted.
I don't think it's as symmetrical, Glenn. Like certainly there is some degree of reciprocity, but I think women have
Mhm.
created and shaped men in modern age much more than the other way around.
Oh,
This is
absolutely.
because there's far more single mother households than
Mhm.
single father households. The vast majority of kindergarten, elementary, and even secondary school teachers are women. So it's like some millions of people only get exposed to a healthy male role model sometimes in adulthood. And by
Yeah.
then, a great deal of their values and personalities have been, I wouldn't say like etched in stone, but they're becoming pretty solid. And after you reach 30, it's really hard to change a person's personality. It might be impossible.
exactly. Yeah,
So
habits, what you get used to.
yeah, and there has been a definitely a feminization of men for sure. And
Mm,
all traditional masculine traits, the um the
The
strength,
APA.
the boldness, the
Yeah.
assertiveness, the confidence, all of those are only appropriate if we see them in women for
Yeah,
some
if we
reason.
serve
mhm.
women. If
But
we
a
use them
man
to
who
serve women.
demonstrates that
Yeah.
he's a dominant person, that he's strong, that he's brave, and he's courageous, on some level, that's posturing or toxic masculinity, which is not true. The only toxic masculinity that exists is the absence of masculinity. The absence of masculinity is what creates problems in society, not the presence of it.
Mhm.
See, I
Right.
always say like the toxic masculinity is when the guy like abandons his masculine traits for more feminine traits. That's pretty toxic.
I hear that, but that's, as you know, Glenn, that's not how the term is usually
Yeah,
used.
I know.
But
Just try
I
to.
see what you mean. Sure.
It's like the rejection of what you naturally have for the other
It's
appeasement of
tricky
others.
because you want to avoid just sweeping
Yeah.
extreme statements. My stance on it is that men and women both contain masculine and feminine traits, attributes, energies, whatever fucking words
Mhm.
you want to use. But in general, the average man will be more masculine than the average woman, and the most masculine people are all men. So
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
general, it's a good idea on the population level for people to lean in to their traditional gender expression. Like women are better at femininity than men are. Men are better at masculinity than women are. Why don't we all play to our strengths and then swap for complementary skill sets? Like that's the basis of all successful business ventures.
Correct, yeah. Know your role, know your role. So, okay, so I wanna get into this next one because I've heard you say this in a couple videos, you said, "Stop short or go long." Is that how you say it? Stop short or go
Oh yeah, I
long?
made an episode called that, right?
So, what can you I wanna hear a little bit about this. Like, what do you think's happening between the people who are like, Because I know I've said it, right? I said, "I'm glad I'm not in the dating sphere today." Like, "I'm glad I've been married," right? Like, can you explain that?
Sure. So the concept here is that if you're looking for a long-term relationship, there are two viable strategies in today's day and age. You can stop short or you can go long. And the people who get caught in the middle are the ones who have really terrible outcomes and they're not really satisfied. And there's a lot of resentment or
What do you mean
unrealized
stop in the
dreams.
middle? What do you mean stop in the middle?
I'll explain. So
Okay.
between stop short and going long. So the people who stop
Uh,
short are basically the ones who marry their high school sweethearts. It's their first boyfriend, their first girlfriend. They date through high school. They stay together in college, and they're like, "I'm, you're good enough. I really love you. I don't know anything else, but
right.
I like what I have with you." Now, from an objective standpoint, what are the odds that your high school sweetheart is the very best partner that you could possibly get in your life? It's functionally zero. Like
Yeah, it's very hard.
you just happen to be in the same homeroom as your soulmate? Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, mm,
Go ahead.
no, I don't even believe in soulmates, so but
Well,
we'll get
neither do
into
I.
another
I think you can
another
have
call.
many satisfying
I think
relationships
there's many
with different
soulmates.
people.
There's no
Yeah.
one. I think there's multiple ones if you wanted them to be.
And the easier you are to get along with, the more options you have with respect to
Mm,
potential partners to have long-standing loving relationships with. So people can also make themselves less complicated,
correct.
and that's a really good thing to do in general.
Yeah.
So those people, they're best served to like they get out of they never get on the apps, they never get in the dating market, they just get married, they buy a house with a white picket fence and settle down and raise some babies, and they don't get Instagram and they don't get social media, and they just focus on their little life, and hopefully that's great for them. The issue is that a lot of people don't do that, right? And they have a sweetheart in high school or college, but it doesn't work out for various reasons, and then they date this person and that person. That's like getting out of your little hometown and discovering that there's a whole fucking world out there, and there's all these different cultures and all these different places, and it's exciting, the expansiveness,
Mhm.
especially in your 20s. But then it's like you'll never see them all, and there's now if you just get a taste of that and then go back to your little hometown, you might possibly be resentful that you've
It'll
seen a
seem
peek of it.
boring. Yeah,
It's
it'll
like
seem
Ariel
boring.
saw the human world and she couldn't let it go. You
Correct.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, but
better
she didn't know
if
how to
she
use a
never saw
fork.
it to begin with. That would be stopping short. But she saw a little bit of it and it drove her crazy. And so she couldn't stay in the sea anymore, right? The alternative is to go long. So if you
Mm.
want to enter into that period of expansion, go all the way. Go to all the continents. G- Go to as many different cities as you can. Experience as many different cultures and cuisines and ways of life as possible, and then find your favorite. So the example I gave is you travel around the world and you come to a town and you're like, I really like it here. I've never seen a place like this. It's better than the other 200 places I've been. That's your place. Because the likelihood is there objectively a better place out there? Probably still. There's a lot of places in the world, but if this is better than the last 200 places you traveled to, the likelihood that you're going to find a better place in an appreciable timeline is very low. So now you've found something that really, really works for you, and you know more or less you've done an exhaustive sampling of the market. So like you don't have this. Am I missing out? Did I not explore enough? No, you did a lot of exploring actually, and this is the best you found. So it's probably going to be closer to your soulmate than your high school sweetheart might be, right? The issue is that
So,
people do a little bit of exploring and then they settle, and they're like Ariel. They see the human world and they can't let it go. And that leads to all kinds of envy and comparison and resentment and conflict. So
so
stop
wait a
short and
Okay.
minute.
go
Are
long.
you equating like dating to like dishes from different cuisines? Because I'm all for that. Like, I mean, I'm try a little bit of Asian, Chinese, Japanese. You might like whatever works on your palate is what you're saying. Like,
If you don't know what you want, and people in the beginning don't know what they want about anything. They don't know what they want about
mhm.
music, about romantic
I would
partners.
argue that most people don't know what they want ever. I would argue that.
I think a lot of people, we're constantly in the process of becoming who we are. And a lot of
Mhm.
people, let's say, if I'm going to be generous, are still identifying with things that they want from a previous version of themselves. and they
Mhm.
haven't done the time and the energy to update their browsers, as it were.
Mhm.
But it is hard to know what you want. We act like that's a very simple and straightforward thing to understand. It's not. Let me finish my thought. So if you are in a place where you don't know what you want, the best thing you could do is to treat the world like it's a buffet in a culture whose cuisine you're unfamiliar with. It's like you don't recognize any of the foods. So what do you do in that situation? You take a little bit of everything and then you make a taste of it. Because if you don't know what you want, you can't really know what you want before you taste it. But as soon as you make the trial of the things, you know exactly where to go back for seconds. Like it's not even a something that you have to consider.
Mm.
That I really liked the taste of that. I'm never going to put that in my mouth again. Like it becomes so clear where you should move towards once you make the taste of it, which is coming into emotional contact with the variety of experience.
So I want to kind of touch on the psychological aspect because we know that our habits greatly dictate our choices.
Sure.
Okay. If let's just say you met somebody in high school, okay? And this is who you decide to marry, okay? And you made a vow and you move forward. You haven't experienced all these so called recipes or dishes, okay? I'm just
Mhm.
going to use that. How if you decide to go along and try all these different things, you get into this habit of, hey, there's no commitment. Hey, I'm just going to go here or go there. This is why I have a problem with that because it's like we know that our habits shape our choices. And if we get used to whether you're a man or a woman, if we get used to no commitment, kind of going around trying different things, not committing, not having any honor or integrity, we're always going to be chasing that next thing.
Well, I was with you into that very last part. So just because you necessarily don't have a committed sexual relationship doesn't necessarily mean that you have no honor or integrity. Those are two different things. But what I have to say about this is you don't have to worry too much, Gia, because it's a self-correcting problem. Like, for example, especially around the COVID shutdowns, people were
Mhm.
romanticizing the idea of being a digital nomad. And I don't have to go into the
Okay.
office anymore. I can travel and work anywhere around the world. I can be uprooted. If I don't like some place, I just move to a different country. Like, that's actually very hard to maintain. And after a little bit of that, most people will settle down somewhere, at least provisionally, where they have a couple of bases of operations that they jump between. Like pure
Okay.
freedom is not something that any human being is equipped to tolerate for very long.
Mhm. You
So
need the
you
Mhm.
don't have to
boundaries and the
worry about that.
structure. It's
People
the
will
Okay.
boundaries and the
eventually
structure that
collapse
people
down into some sort of stability or commitment, or they'll be destroyed.
Ah,
And
okay.
most people will collapse into structure and commitment.
Okay.
is that because, like, there's safety and security in that structure,
Of
right?
course.
Like and that's what they're longing for after, like, this n freedom, like, "Oh, I can do whatever I want." Okay, no, I wanna rein it back in because I like this structure and boundaries. There's
We have
some
to
set of
we have to potentially reconsider our idea of freedom. Like, for
Mhm,
example, the planets are free. Like, they've been
Mm,
revolving around the sun for billions of years. But the reason they're able to do that is they stay in their fucking lane. If they
mhm,
started to veer too
mm,
close or too far, they wouldn't be free to travel around the sun anymore because they'd be spun out into
mm.
space or sucked into the star. So the real freedom comes for surrendering to the structure that supports the person that you want to be. It's not the
Okay.
absence of structure. It's
Okay.
surrender. It's voluntary surrender to self-created structure. That's what freedom is.
Ah, so you're choosing what
mhm,
you're responsible for. That's kind of
Correct.
freedom.
And
Okay.
you have
Okay.
to be responsible to something because the alternative is
Mhm.
so empty and gnawingly void that it will destroy your sanity and your quality of life.
Understand.
But
so,
Thank
that's
you.
not a problem that most people deal with.
Okay.
so here's a question,
Good to know.
you mentioned, I think in one of your recent videos that I watched, that you were talking about you're not marriage focused, right? Like you're not seeing marriage in your future. Um, and there's been a lot of debates and talks around this whole topic. You know, my buddy Andrew Wilson has debated a couple guys in the red pill space about this. And he comes at from an Orthodox Christian worldview or a Christian worldview. So he's coming at it as it's a sacrament, right? It's a religious thing. Some people look at it as like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Where's the divide here? Because you got this debate going on now. Like, should we look at marriage as something important? Oh, marriage is not that important. Involvement of the state that actually devalues it and makes it less valuable?
Not
Um,
necessarily. I understand that perspective. It's important to also append to that that marriage became a sacrament in the Catholic Church in the 13th century, like one of the
yeah,
seven sacraments.
yep.
Sometimes I get pushback when I say that, but you can look it up. It's the truth.
No, it's
And they
true.
say that no, it was a sacrament because of what God said about Adam and Eve, and it was, but they didn't have a
No.
ceremony. There was no state. So we have to understand that there, on one hand, there is the spiritual sacrament of marriage, which is a commitment to to accompany another person through this life,
Yeah.
which can be sacred and can be valuable and can be precious. And then there's the legal and political institution of marriage. And those two things have the same word, the same name, but they're two totally fucking different things.
Mhm.
And it's certainly possible to have the spiritual commitment without the legal bond. And it's certainly possible to have the legal bond without the spiritual commitment. That's, we
Yeah.
see that every day because most marriages end in divorce, which
Yep.
Mhm.
shouldn't be possible under the sacred oath of accompaniment through this valley of tears, right?
Mhm.
So I'm against, personally, for myself, the legal and political institution of marriage because I just don't see how I
Mhm.
benefit. And
Yeah.
it's like all risk and no reward from my standpoint. So I just,
Mhm.
but that doesn't stop me from committing to people. That doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
stop me from having loving, healthy, satisfying relationships, but I just don't get the state involved.
So that's
So like
exactly what I was
let's
looking at. Yeah, like you're not
Mhm.
involving,
Like
not opposed to the commitment. You're just opposed to the state having the way to have their hand in your marriage if it ends.
Yeah, but there's also something to the fact that, and this is going to feel weird to some people, but I think that it's a good idea to not give people too much security.
I know, I
Like
agree with that.
the biggest abuses in history have come at the hands of people who, for whatever reason, could not be removed from their power. These are like kings, popes, autocrats, and dictators of all sorts. Like you can have a dictator of a country, but you could also have a dictator of a household.
Mhm.
Like there's petty dictatorships. There's millions of those all over the world. And I do think that the fact that you neither one has that absolute total security motivates each person to show up for the relationship every day so that they can still be chosen. Like I don't want to be with you just
Mm.
because I chose you in the past. I want to be with you today because I'm choosing you today, and that means that you have
Mhm.
to continue to show up for me as the best version of yourself today, and you're much more motivated to do that if you
When
know
you
that
don't have that safety net.
you don't have a guarantee tomorrow,
Yeah.
and there's potentially a bunch of people who would love to be in your position.
And you're
Like, I hate to
removing
say
that
it, but that's
safety
how it
net,
works.
like, you're removing that safety net that marriage for the state provides, like, "Oh, well, if he does leave me, I get X, Y, and Z." Well, no, now you both are required to have the same faith to work on this relationship when there's no safety net as you would with the state marriage where they give you a safety net or give a specific party a safety net.
Yeah, and I can understand wanting a safety net. It's just that I would be the one providing it. Like, I
Mhm.
I could see myself getting married. I could marry a beautiful billionaire heiress.
Me too.
Like,
I'm for it.
I would marry for the same I would marry a woman for the same reason a woman would wanna marry me. It
Mhm.
would improve my quality of life significantly. But
Mhm.
the vast because I'm here in terms of status and wealth, et cetera, that's generally not going to happen. I'm gonna make the woman's life significantly better. So I'm executing on the same preferences that women are,
Mm. Okay, I
and it
understand
can
that.
infuriate women, but I'm just
No,
mirroring
that
what
that
they
makes
do to
sense.
me,
That
Well,
makes
there's just
sense.
not that many billionaire heiresses just waiting around anyways.
and some of them aren't very attractive. So, I have
No,
my
they're not.
standards too.
That's good. I actually agree with you. I think that's how it should be. I think for women, like I've preached about this before, like women have to be willing to invest as much as he is going to invest. And that means financially, physically, spiritually, on all levels. And that's why, like, even in my own marriage, I've talked about it before, like, I bought the houses, I bought the cars, like, I invested just as much. Like, I don't believe in this whole, like, one side should only benefit. I've always said that. Or otherwise, what's the sense?
Yeah, that's a terrible partnership. It's
Hmm.
awful, even business relationship, right?
Hmm.
Is the main way that we stay together is reciprocity and the mutual enjoyment
Hmm.
of each other's company. And it's also, I
Yeah.
mean, it's very odd. Like I think that the longer I live, the more that I value friendship
Mhm.
Hmm.
over sexual partnership. Like, and it would be very strange if after hanging out with some guy for a while, I was like, "Hey, buddy, hey, Glenn, you seem like a cool dude. Would you mind signing this paper that says that we'll actually be friends forever? And if for whatever reason I decide or you decide not to be friends, like I'm entitled to these kinds of damages. Like and I value our
Mm,
friendship so much that's why I want to have this contract with you. Like it would be
I'd be like,
Yeah.
you
so
know what? I
fucking weird,
value our friendship so much not to sign it.
right? It would feel very, very
Mm,
strange.
It would be
mhm,
weird.
And it would be like
mhm,
that. Even if I were to sign this, I feel like we wouldn't have a friendship anymore because friendship
mm,
is voluntary and it's based on the goodwill of the individuals involved.
And then you're making it an
And
obligation now with the contract.
you have to understand also,
mm,
my dad helped me understand this. The reason why we have contracts in general is so that we can do business with people we don't trust.
Mhm.
Trust takes a long time to build. And if I needed
mhm.
to build trust with every person I did business with, no business would slow to a snail's pace. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do business with you guys not because I trust you, I just met you, but because
Mhm,
I trust the legal system to
Mhm.
execute
mhm,
whatever contract that we sign. So I don't need to trust you. I just need to trust the legal system. And I do
mm.
by and large.
The
So
enforcement arm. Yeah.
that enables me to do business with people I don't trust. When there is trust, there is absolutely no reason for contracts.
Mhm.
So what do you think about, like, okay, you know that they say like men and women cannot be friends, or they can't have platonic friendships or whatever. Do you think that's true? Or is there it's like there's some truth to it? Not there's more nuanced.
It's true on the most part. Like there's some exceptions. Like if you've been friends with this girl since elementary school or high school before you became sexually active, that's I think an exception. Um, Maybe if you're coworkers or colleagues, sometimes you can be friends with an ex, but that's generally a red flag. But
Oh hell
it's like
no.
you can certainly leave on friendly terms. You don't have to do a
Mhm.
scorched earth policy just because you broke up. I think on the whole, women enjoy women's company more than men's, and I think men enjoy men's company more than women's.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I just don't see like it's not necessarily like it's a hard no, right? But I do think that like you have to be careful because you can't be attractive to either one of them. Because
You can
if one
have
of them are
I've always
attracted to
said you
each
can have
other,
acquaintances. You can have
no
opposite
good.
sex acquaintances, but I'm not gonna be calling another man to get deep into emotional issues. The only person I'm doing that with is my husband. I'm
Well, that's
not going to be
probably
sharing that with.
for the best because then you have
Mhm.
a kind of a Frankenstein relationship. You're using your husband for sex and resources potentially,
Correct,
and this other guy, maybe a
correct,
gay best friend, for emotional support,
correct,
right? That's sort of like
correct.
a man using a side chick or a mistress for sex while getting emotional support from his wife. It's the same thing, but from a gendered
Exactly.
perspective. But a lot of women don't think that that kind of gossiping or
Mhm.
transgressing the boundary of the relationship is a violation of the relationship, like cheating is. That's not cheating. I was just venting. It's like that.
Right.
What?
Yeah,
Actually, I
yeah.
think that the damages that can come from emotional sources are generally more difficult to get over than
Yeah.
the damages that come from sexual sources.
Yeah, I always said like cheating was more of the deception and the betrayal. It has nothing to do with the physical element of it as much as like the emotional connection to it.
Hmm. Well, that's generally what guys say when they get caught, right? The first thing out of their mouth is, "It didn't mean anything, sweetie. It was just sex," right?
That
And
is true.
that might actually work on some women. But if a woman said that to a man after she got caught cheating, and she
But
said,
oh
"Don't
well,
worry, honey, it was just sex," that's going to piss the guy off even more. That's another way that men and women are different. On some level,
yeah,
if his wife came to him and said, "Honey, I have some bad news. I tried to fight it for a long time, but I fall in love with somebody. You're a great man, but like I feel that I have to do this. I've never felt this way before. I'm so sorry." Like he would be disappointed, but he might understand that more than I fucked my office
yeah,
husband in the
yeah.
supply closet.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's
Yeah.
because the way that men and women look at sex differently, right? Like, because men can compartmentalize, and women are, they're more vulnerable when they have sex. So if she has sex and didn't tell you that she had sex with someone else, then the potential of her passing this child off as yours is up there. So
Sure.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
think
mate
there's
guarding
more.
and jealousy seem to be evolutionarily baked into men
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
help ensure their paternity. I mean, women always know when their
Correct.
babies are theirs. Men never
Why
do.
is it that guys always want to know all the sexual acts that their wife did when they catch them cheating? Like, did you
Why?
sleep with them here? Did you do it over here? Like,
Uh, Well, it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea to go digging into a woman's sexual past because you're never gonna find anything that's going to reassure you there, my dude.
Mm.
No,
Like,
I just find it funny, like, when guys find out their girl's cheating, they wanna know the acts or the locations of the things. Women wanna know, "Well, did you love her?" They wanna know the emotional part of it.
sometimes women wanna know the details too, and if you go to couples therapy when they're working through infidelity, some couples do that and they tell the story, but the issue is that there's always gonna be details that need to be left out. There's always gonna be uncertainty. Some people believe that they'll get closure if they understand what happened. That's not true. Closure for anything never comes from outside, it comes from inside. Closure
Mhm.
doesn't happen when we have enough information. There's some people who get tons of
Mm.
information and they still obsess over it. They still ruminate over it. Closure comes when you decide to stop looking, when you make the
Mhm.
decision to let it go and move on with your life. And that can come with all the information in the world or zero information in the world. That is a self informed decision.
It's like when you come to the terms where, like, it doesn't matter what other information you have, that it's done is done, and you gotta let it go.
Well, I mean, on some level, yeah. You don't necessarily have to get angry and jealous, but you might have to make a decision about the future of your relationship. And it's probably best if you make that decision not out of anger or jealousy, but based on sort of like the reality of the situation. You don't have to be angry to leave. And you don't
Yeah.
have to
Mhm.
stay when someone betrays your trust. I mean, like, just move on. But you don't have to make a whole victim identity out of it either. And you don't necessarily
Exactly.
have your heart shattered into a million pieces in 10 years of therapy, and you can never trust the
Mhm.
opposite sex again. I mean, that's insane.
That's when, like, it's interesting you said that because that's what I kinda see it like, really in these, like, in Twitter Spaces or a lot of these Twitter communities posts where you see, like, this war between the genders. It seems like guys are making themselves to be more victimized, than victors, from women. It's like, "Oh, we can't ever do this because women are like this," or "Women can't trust women because women are like this." It's like they constantly expose, like, this victim mentality or this victimization,
Yeah.
and
It's kind of
it
feminine. I mean, it's like
yeah.
the same women have been doing that for years. All men are dogs.
Correct.
I'm a jilted lover. That's just typically a female role, not a male role. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's not a good
It
look
is
on
very
either
female
for other
framing.
sex.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like people are not concerned with the solutions, they're just concerned with complaining. So I wanna
Yeah.
kinda get into your book because you talk about in your book about the future of relationships and how we're in a dating crisis, right? I know, like, what has worked previously in the past is not working anymore, and we're kind of in this period where you can choose now, right? You can decide. You can choose to opt out altogether and not date, not get married, or you can choose to play the game and right? So you can choose now. What future would you give people listening? Because I know I hear from, a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, I've given up with dating," or, "I don't think there's a future for dating." What hope can we give? What solutions can you give to people in the dating sphere, right, with what's happening, the changes?
Well, I think there is a lot of reason to be hopeful in the same way that you can make money in a bull market just as much as you can make money in a bear market, but you have to adopt your strategy. So every crisis is also an opportunity. The
Mhm.
Japanese use the same character for both of those concepts. Crisis is opportunity. And what we have in the public discourse are folks on the one side who are like, everyone just needs to embrace Jesus and traditional gender roles. And that's what's going to prevent society from falling apart. Get in line. Let's go back to the 1950s. Or they're just nihilists and they're black pills and like the world is fucked and you can't trust anybody and let's just watch the world burn. Turns out there's a great fucking huge distance between those two extremes. And just like the genie does not go back into the bottle, we're not going to be going back to the 1950s for better or for
Mhm.
worse. And we don't have to allow things to fall apart completely either. There's places in the middle, and that's the opportunity for relationships today. So I make the argument in the book that one of the reasons why marriage has such a low success rate in today's day and age is because we've wanted it to be too many things.
Right.
Before it used to just be a place to raise children, and we're basically running a small
Mhm.
business. You run the kitchen, I run the farm,
People
and
knew their roles. I agree. Mhm.
we're gonna work together to do this. But now we want a spouse, we want a co-parent, we want a best friend, we want a mistress, we want a therapist, we want a cheerleader, we want a chauffeur and a chef and a maid and a drinking buddy and a Pilates partner. And it's like blah, 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 blah. And that's hard to do. You're not going to find somebody who can be optimized across all those roles. And actually, in traditional society, you'd get so many of those needs met through your extended kin network and the other people in your village or tribe. But we've
Well,
become
I've
so
said it. I've said in the past that women can be many things. Like having multiple roles is a good thing. Okay. To be capable is a good thing. But where we go wrong, and I'm talking about women, women go wrong because they want their identical twin. So this is where I tell them you're not going to get your identical twin. He's going to have things that are going to be completely opposite of you, and you have to do your own things. Have your own things, right? So I think there's a lack of discernment when it comes to that kind of
I
thing.
think men can do that as well. Some guys are looking for a dude with tits, kind of a thing. But yes, I have an episode coming out about that. It's like, don't make him into your girlfriend.
Right.
Uh, and women expect their men to listen like their girlfriends, and that's feminizing, and it leads to
Walk to watch the
suboptimal
sunset with
outcomes,
me. Well, he doesn't wanna walk to the sunset. You go
right?
walk to the sunset, you
That
know?
doesn't mean you can't
Mhm.
watch the sunset by yourself or with your girlfriend. Go
Correct,
do that.
exactly.
So the
Mhm.
point is that I think that marriage has become conflated with all of these different roles and concepts. And so the
Right,
opportunity is that this is starting to fragment and fall apart. It doesn't have to fall apart completely. What I'm saying is that these things have started to shift a little bit so that each individual couple can come in and say, oh, I want these things and I don't want those things. But
right.
in general, marriage has been this monolithic thing. You have to get married, you have to live together, you have to have a wedding, you have to have children, you have to be sexually exclusive, you have to be this, that, the other. And it's like, really? That's the only way to have healthy, loving, satisfying relationships? It's
Exactly.
not. It's not. And don't let the religious and trad apologists confuse you. There's more than one way to have loving, healthy, successful relationships.
That's
So,
Agreed,
right. You can
agreed.
have a polygyny, have multiple wives. When one acts up,
No,
you can pick up another
I
one. That's biblical too.
I think that's what people have done, right? They've gone with, like, what's been expected from their parents or
sure,
their
people still do
sphere,
that.
their community. "Hey, this is the way." Because I know in my own upbringing, in a Middle East upbringing, that's what we're raised to do. A girl is from a very young is taught, "You learn to cook and clean and have babies." Like, that is your role, you know? So, whenever we kinda go that route and we're not doing what we actually want, it ends up coming out somehow, some way, whether it be resentment in the marriage or divorce or however, we're not actually living up to our own standards. We're trying to fulfill expectations of other people.
Well, everything is a trade-off. You
Mhm.
can't have everything in life. Everything requires a cost, even inaction, not making a decision,
Absolutely.
you pay a
Mhm.
cost. So it's just like, which costs are you willing to pay? And
Right.
ideally, you're trying to get more of what you want and less of what you don't, but you can't
Mhm.
have it both ways
Can't have it
sometimes.
all. No. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. That's what I always
You
say.
certainly can't have it all at once, but you might not be able to have it all even sequentially. Let's just be honest. There's
Mm.
too many mountains to
There will
climb
be
and not enough
yeah,
time.
there will be sacrifices. Absolutely.
So, Dr. Turban, let me ask you a
I'm gonna have
quick
to
one here.
wrap up soon because I have a 4 o'clock
Yeah.
in person, so
Yeah.
I
just
was
wanna
just about to
put that
ask
out
you
there.
that. Before you have to go, what would you give? What's the 5 steps of advice, like the 5 best advices that you could give for guys that are trying to get in the dating market or they're not getting very much success in the dating market? What advice can you give them
Mhm.
to focus on them, so they can get better options or get better opportunities?
I don't know if I have 5 pat responses that I can just rattle off, but the problem for most men is marketing. Most men are wallpaper, and for better or for worse, it takes longer for anyone, man or woman, to determine whether a man is high value or not.
Mhm.
The exceptions to that are the dudes who are flashing cash and for Lamborghinis and bottle service on social media, but sometimes those are false signals and they're going to credit card debt. They don't actually own the car, et cetera, et cetera. Like I just did a consultation with a guy. The guy is worth $250 million. He has a PhD from Stanford. He's one of the leading experts in his field. But just walking down the street, you would never know. You would never know. Right. So it would take a while, man or woman, to kind of get to know this person and say, wow, this person's really fascinating, very high value, got a lot going on. I want to spend more time with this person. So men can do a better job of advertising. And
Mhm.
I do think that most men are wallpaper in the sense that they are invisible and indistinguishable from other men to women. Women respond to certain male archetypes. There's a few different ones, but there's not an infinite number of them. And the more that a man can kind of appropriate and align with one of those archetypes, ideally the one that's closest to who he feels authentically, the easier he's going to pop out of the landscape and actually be visible to women. For example, a perennial archetype is the bad boy, right? Get a motorcycle jacket and some aviators. Another one could be the fun party guy, get an aloha shirt and wacky sunglasses and be the life of the party. Another one is, let's say, the sensitive artist. Be a little emo, learn how to play the guitar, shit like that. So these are ways to break through the undifferentiated gaze of women, because most women don't even like pay attention. At least they pay attention from like a threat perspective, like
Mhm.
where the person is in the periphery, but they don't go through life. Men go through life like women go through ovulation. Men are constantly on the lookout for sexual partners and sexual access.
Mhm.
Women, they tend to peak at certain stages of their cycle. So when they're in the luteal phase or they're menstruating, they often they don't want to think about that. They don't feel like seeking it out, and a lot of guys are just going to be invisible, even if they might be great fits for her. And to work on your value proposition, to understand that as a man, you're a long-term investment. And most likely, you're not really going to enter into the fullness of your opportunity until your mid 30s, because it could take that long to get your fitness together, to get your wealth together, to get your
Mhm.
head out of your ass, to have some experience with seduction, leading a relationship, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you have to work on your value proposition. Most guys have a decent value proposition, but women's estimate of what they deserve has been inflated. So
Mhm.
most men actually have a marketing problem, but everyone can get better at marketing and increasing their value. And for
I want
guys,
to
it's
say,
it's be patient.
I want to say you didn't know this, but thank you for marketing my archetype. Something about motorcycles and leather jackets. I knew it. I knew we were friends a long time ago, but thank you.
There you
Um,
go, man. Yeah, it's like that's
Well,
going to be exciting to a lot of women.
so
Keep it up.
I wanna thank you for coming on the show. Again, it's been a pleasure. Really, really happy that we were able to do this. I wanna make sure that the viewers know where to find you. I'm gonna go ahead and link all your stuff in with the video, but
Oh, sure.
can you tell the viewers, like, where they can see more of your stuff and where they
Yeah,
can
thank
go
you. The
pick up
best
your
place
book?
to find me is on YouTube. You can search for my name, Orion Taraban, or my handle, Psychax. I have nearly 1 million followers there, and the description of all of my episodes have links to my website where people can join my newsletter or book a consultation, links to my books, The Value of Others and Starry Night, links to my member community, The Captain's Quarters. So everything kind of spins from YouTube, and that's probably the easiest, best way. So if you subscribe there, you get access to all of the panoply of services.
Perfect, and
and
what are
actually,
you
you
working
can
on
get
next?
everything in the description. We actually have it in the description here as well.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you,
What
man.
what are you what are you working on next, Dr. Taraban?
Actually, what I'm working on is creating and deploying an AI agent that's been trained exclusively on all of my episodes, my books, my writings. So that should be coming out in the next month or so, I hope.
Very cool.
Very nice.
So
Very
that's
cool.
the next big project, and I'll probably turn towards writing another nonfiction book later in the year.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, I hope you enjoyed. For those that are watching, make sure you go follow him, go check out his book, and don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to give us our feedback, what you want to hear next. I know I had like probably 20 other questions for you that we're not going to get into today, but I
We can
definitely
always
want to
do it
have
again.
you back on the show, but in person. In person. That's the
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
goal.
have to do a live studio show. It'll be fun.
that
See if
would
we
be
can get
fun.
Yeah.
James to come out too. That'll be fun.
Yes.
They're
So
always
thank
more
you
fun in
again.
person. It
We'll
was a
definitely
pleasure.
be in
Thanks so much for
touch.
having me on, Glenn, Gia. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Yes, we'll
Dr.
talk to
Ryan.
you
Talk to you
soon.
soon. All right, everybody.
Bye.
Until next time,
See you
we'll
all
have a
soon.
good one. Bye.
Yes. Bye.
Gone. Fire from fake ideals tomorrow decay. They're lighting up the modern age. No one safe, not the church, not fame. They're flipping the script, rewriting the game. Love and logic, heart and soul, saving the truth for this nation's soul.